All right, audio checking on the audio. I think we should be good now. Yeah. All right, let's play one. Just have some fun. Here we go. Yeah, all right. Having a good time. Not here for a long time, here for a good time, right? Cool. I wanted to talk about tone today. I want to talk about finding your voice and what that really means, right? Because in the wake of everything with the fallout from last week's industry chaos, the one thing that can't be mimed is your own voice. The one thing that can't be faked, right? You either go in a room and you sound like yourself or you don't. Now, that's not saying you don't paint with different colors. And maybe that's something to talk about today, too, is like what I choose to paint with. Things that might be interesting to you guys is the approach and like what it means to find your sound, even if the sound isn't like the certain combination of pedals and amps and stuff, right? It could be something that's totally different than what you normally use. So, like, for example, I've got 2 amps pulled up and my touring pedal board. And my touring pedal board's getting ready to get a little facelift, thanks to Daniel at Gig Rig and Pedal Show. I use the Gig Rig stuff, and they make a digital faceplate. So no pun intended. We're actually going to do a faceplate replacement. And I'm thinking about replacing the Strymon Mobius with a Fractal VP4 on both of my touring boards. So one of the things that I thought might be cool would be to show you the different examples of both kind of sounds from 2 different amps that I tour with that I really like. The amp that you were just hearing is not the one I'm on right now. The amp that you were just hearing, it was the Sir SL68, which is basically a Marshall. And then the amp that I'm on is the Sir Bella, which is basically a blackface, a Fender, right? And so I want you to kind of like just check out how the same sound really changes from both amps, right? So this is obviously way more Fendery, right? The aux is set to greenbacks, yeah. Let's go back to the Marshall. They're both really nice, right? Like the Marshall has more of that gutty thickness. Here's the same kind of sound on the Bella. More scooped. With a Marshall. Now back to the Fendery kind of thing, the Bella. Let's do it on the single coily kind of sound, right? That's where the Bella shines to me. Yeah. And then on the Marshall as well. It's thicker. It's a lot more unforgiving too. Yeah, there's no the compressor is on. I see some talking over here. The compressor's on, but there's no reverb. This is the Halo delay. Sounds like a reverb, but there's no reverb on. I got rid of the timeline. I'll tell you the story on that. I'm going to take a little break here from the picking, the mindless wankery. So when I was out with Gary, I guess it was Gary LeVox, maybe last year sometime. Could have been the end of the year before that. I was doing a gig with Gary, and it started to rain, and this was a big festival gig, and they had tarps out there. And they pull the tarps and they unplug the power to the boards and they plug the power back in. Well, when they plugged the power back in, the Strymon came up and it was not on my presets. And I couldn't access my presets. We were probably 8 or 9 minutes from downbeat. And I was like, holy guacamole, I really used these delays like that. I played, the delay like just to add a room sound to my sound, and I have it on an expression pedal, and it's not the kind of thing that you can just whip up in 2 seconds. And I freaked out. So I immediately unplugged the power to the delay unit itself and plugged that back in, and my presets came back. I was super thankful, but I immediately was like, nope, can't. Now I'm once bitten, twice shy. I'm out. The Strymon is a great unit, but like if that was a thing and the Halo goes down, let's say the Halo goes to factory reset mode. I go to preset number 1 and it's ready to go. Like it's just there. Like, so due to that specific thing, I immediately switched to Halos on all of my boards. The only board that doesn't have a Halo is my smallest baby board, and it's got a VP4 emulating a Halo. So, yeah, that's a big thing, and that's why I use the Halo. Now, I do have a reverb pedal on the board, and let me show you that and how I use it, because that's super different. Here's the reverb. I almost use the reverb like a kind of like an effect. That's stupid to say it's an effect. You know how people use reverb and delay to not be an effect, but just to add depth to the note? That's what I use the Halo for. I use reverb to sound like an old reverb. So it's like meant to sound like I'm using it for that kind of thing, right? It's meant to be like, it kind of plays with the overdrive. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of that thing. So I'm using the reverb to be a thing that's like not an always on. It's something that's like used to be really extreme, and it's the Strymon Blue Sky. But I also use it for this gag effect. That's the it's got these like it's got that thing on it. put some stuff up there, you know. Probably nicer with the Bella. This is a great example of where I would want that more scooped mid-range. See how much nicer it is without the mids, right? It's really nice, you know, for that kind of thing. But that's where I use it. There's my dry sound. And then I add in the halo for the actual like room ambiance. It sounds more real to me. And I don't know what I mean by that. It sounds less like an effect is on. It just sounds like there's just room around the guitar. Like there's just room on the note. This is literally preset number 1. No, this isn't the Zelda Fairy Fountain. This is one of my tunes called Cherry Blossoms. I'd sell it to Nintendo. I wrote it for my granddad and my dad when they died. It's a pretty set of changes, chord changes. I should have been an adult and got therapy. Instead, I was writing an album. Yeah, I mean, So the more hollow mids is really, really nice for that style of playing. When you add a lot of gain, I like the thicker mids from the more Marshall style circuits. So the reason I'm talking about this, I just went up to Carter Vintage, I guess a week or so ago, and filmed some stuff. And for those that don't know about those Carter Vintage videos, I'm looking over in the chat and I see Mr. Mike Seal in the house, world-class guitarist and good friend of mine, Mike Seal. Seriously, world-class guitarist. He's done some of the Carter Vintage videos, and you should check those out as well. But Mike will verify this. When you go over there and film for Carter, they just kind of throw you whatever they have in stock that they want to demo. So it could be something with frets this big or a super round radius or whatever. I mean, these are vintage pieces of gear. So vintage gear it has quirks. So when I went in, one of the things that they threw at me, everything was played through a Dumble. I had a couple of small pedals. I had like a little overdrive pedal, some delay, and my compressor. So I just dialed in the Dumble and the signal changes where I thought it sounded kind of fun with this old SG, and the SG had P90s in it, and they were super noisy. So it's like the moment you kind of let out of playing, you heard the hum of the P90s. So I was like, well, screw it. We'll just do something really fun, burning. I don't know. I just improvised and played, fast shred licks. I don't know. and in that was a little bit of The Marriage of Figaro by Mozart. I always thought that was a fun classical piece, and I had like a little kind of bastardized arrangement of it. And so I played that. But the point is that really my signature sound? No. But do I have my own voice when I play that gear? Yes. Mike Seal is a great example of this. Mike always sounds like Mike in a great way. I've heard him play a million different guitars, a million different amps. I've heard him play acoustic. I've heard him play electric. He's got his voice regardless of how that's being colored. In today's realm with preset sharing, and I make presets on my Axe-FXs and Line 6 units and stuff and sell them on my website, shameless plug. But in today's era of all of this kind of stuff, there's a bit of a homogenization that can happen. I'm very careful because I don't want to sound like old man yelling at a cloud, because it's not. It's a really beautiful thing where you can share presets that you make. I mean, I end up sending them to my patrons on Patreon just so they can play them. I send them to my friends just where it's like, I sent one, I made a great lead setting, or I thought it was great. Kind of a hero kind of lead tone. Mike Seal calls it the jet fighter kind of tone, where it's like that classic, Steve Morse, Eric Johnson-y, like cape blowing in the wind kind of tone. And I sent it over to Matt Picone, and I sent it to Ben Eller and a buddy of mine, Al McManus and stuff. And, I like to do that. I like to make tones and just send them to friends just to where they can, we can play them, right? But this is where I'm going with it. You got to be careful because it's easy to lose your identity if you only play the things that your one or two favorite guitar player plays, only on the one or two favorite things that they play. And you're never kind of stretching to see what you sound like on another patch, even within an Axe-FX, because an Axe-FX is essentially an open book. It can be whatever you want it to be. I think the Axe-FX is a great, and I say this very carefully because it's a very expensive unit, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a great entryway piece of gear because we all can't go out and buy a wall of amps. It's taken me years to put this collection together, and I still can't go out and buy a Dumble or 3 or 4 train wrecks. It's like this, that you burn through 6 figures worth of money in a heartbeat, but the Fractal allows you to test those amps out. Now, again, I want to circle back. If you're only playing periphery songs on the Misha Mansour setting, like you're not really finding what your voice is. If I played the Misha Mansour setting, I wouldn't sound like Misha because my voice is... I've developed what I sound like, good, bad, or ugly. I kind of have a thing that's my thing at this point. That's something I really wanted to get into the conversation with today because I find it kind of interesting. I see Devin Allenson saying, "What are your go-to presets in the Halo?" Man, this is a great example. I literally use preset number 1, which is this one. I pull the mix back a little bit because it's a little too wet, the stock preset. But then I have it on expression pedals, so if I want a lot of wet water, and then if it's on expression pedal, I can just pull the heel down and it goes away. And even with a completely dry tone, I still sound like me. Like I still have the thing that's mine, whatever that is. Those licks get really hard with no gain. Yeah. Anyways, but I use the preset number 1 in the Halo, and the only other thing I do is make a slapback preset, which with the heel down, it's a really tight kind of Brent Mason-y kind of sound. What is the lick? You know, especially with more brighter. And then with the toe forward, it's got more loose. It's almost the Van Halen-y kind of thing. Or the Brad Paisley thing. I say Van Halen, I'm thinking of. I almost think of that thing, right? Those are the only 2 presets I use in this monstrosity that the Halo can do a million different things. So let's check out some questions, Q&A here, kind of getting to the Q&A portion of the show. When is the Northern Europe tour? It looks like I'm going to be coming to Europe for Guitar Summit at the end of September. Looks like that's going to happen. Rebecca is in the house saying, do you ever play a 7-string? I actually have an Ibanez 7-string. I don't really do that thing very often, but I have one just in case I need it for, overdubs, or if I do need to track some metal stuff for a client or something. I just have one as a tool. I don't really have it as like my voice, like some guys. Like Tosin Abasi, the extended range thing is like his voice. You know what I mean? Totally different. Checking out some more questions. Mike Seal says the classical part you played was really cool. The intro, most ferocious I've seen. Oh, I mean, it's like, here's the funny thing, Mike, is like when you stop playing on those P90s, it was just like single coil, kind of hum, but cranked up because P90s are a little hotter. So you just kind of had to be in the gas the whole time or the thing started. You hear it at the end of the video. The guitar starts to kind of let go. Dustin saying, Andy, having played all this modern day modelers, say that 3 times fast, modern day modeler stuff, where does the feel of the Helix stand in comparison to even the older Fractal Axe 2 era stuff? Okay, buckle up. Long answer for this question. This is Dustin. I look at modelers like consumer electronics, like the iPhone. It's going to be outdated and in no time. There's only so far you can push the firmware before you have to update the hardware. That's the case of the Fractal, Axe FX and then Axe FX 2, right? AX8. Then you got into the 3 and the FM9s, and they're pushing those to the limits. And then soon we'll have whatever that just, super ultra and then super mega ultra. It reminds me of the old Street Fighter 2 games where it was like Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Street Fighter 2 Super Turbo. It's like it keeps doing that because they're consumer electronics. They're They're cool, but because software is its thing, it's going to keep getting outdated. You're never going to see the situation where somebody is specifically hunting down an Axe-Fx 1 or an Axe-Fx 2. Unlike a Diesel Herbert or a 63 Fender Deluxe. Like, people are going to go hunt down that amplifier. I want that amplifier, or that 60s Plexi up top. Like, let's compare it to the automotive industry, because you guys know my car. I love my cars. Nobody's going to restore a Tesla. You know what I'm saying? So when I look at modelers, he's asking about the Helix stand in comparison to older Fractal. It really just, at this point, it just depends on how well you've got it dialed in, because I can hear a brand new Axe-Fx 3 sound like complete crap. I mean, there's a couple of clips where I've heard, I was like, I can't believe somebody found a way to make it sound that thin and sound that bad. But they can. People are idiots, you know. I mean, it just is. Like, people can just figure out a way to, like, make something sound terrible because they've got too much control. That's what a modeler does in a negative way. It gives too much freedom to the user, and then you end up with just fizz and nothing and thin sounding tones that probably sound good on a record with somebody overdubbing 37 times the same part and MIDI sampling it and moving it and making it, and it's like, but like the tone itself is not pleasant. It's not warm. It's not a good sound. That's my opinion. I think if it was a good sound, I think if it was an industry standard, you wouldn't see old amps still on stages, but they are. And I think at that point, you have to have somebody that really knows what they're doing. Like, Guthrie Govan can make anything sound good. So when he plays a Fractal, I'm like, of course, he could play literally anything, anywhere, anytime. Guthrie's the best guitar player on the planet. It's like, it's just, it doesn't matter at that point. He's superseded whatever gear he's playing through, and it goes back to what we're talking about. His voice is bigger and better, and it transcends the gear, and he can play to the gear. Like, he can play to the tone that you've got dialed up, right? It's the tone in your head that you're trying to get, and then you chase that sound. But in general, you know, modelers can be awesome, and they can be terrible. The great thing about a Deluxe, an old Fender Deluxe, you can't really screw it up. As horrible as you can dial the knobs, there's only two knobs. There's only, three knobs on a channel? Yeah. Channel 1 has volume, bass, and treble. You can turn them all the way up, and it's going to do something cool. You can turn bass and treble all the way off and turn the volume up, and it's still going to do something cool. It's kind of like it always does its thing. It always just sounds kind of like a Deluxe. You know what I mean? I think that's the difference in analog and digital across the board. Tomas says, Andy, where is the tab for Shoot the Sundown? That's on andywoodmusic.com. It'll be under... it's in the store. So Tomas, it's in the store for I think like $4 or $5, and it's the transcription. Not sure which page it's on. Chuck could probably provide a link. Where does the gain come from? The amp or the pedal? For me lately, gain comes from the pedal, because I like to have a clean bass tone, like beginning tone, right? I like that really nice. You know, I like to have a really good, clean, because to me, I use a lot of clean. I love a great clean tone. And then from there, I'll add like something small, and that's got that even the clean tone has the compressor on it. The next thing I'll add will be something small, like a blues driver. This is a Keeley AT Mod blues driver. And then I'll shift from there and have something like a King of Tone. This is a Pantheon Wampler. Now we're getting into that more like thick kind of tone that I like for power chords and stuff. I like a medium crunch tone that I can hear every note in the chord. Still sounds nice on single coils. And then next up is the gearbox. It kind of does the gearbox thing. And then I have just a pedal of the day kind of slot, and this is set to a AT, like the JHS Andy Timmons overdrive. So it's a little thinner. Yeah, it's good for that thing. But all of those settings are going to sound totally different on the Marshall. Here's the clean on the Marshall. Or I say Marshall, it's like SL68. It's a really big kind of sound. Eats up a lot of frequencies. Then with the crunch thing. With the AT mod. Right. So it's like the whole color palette changes depending on the entire equation. So for me, it's like having a good sense of the way the guitar feels, and you know, obviously the guitar itself is really important to me. This is probably my favorite guitar that I own as far as my sound and my voice. But yeah, you know. Being comfortable to where you can step into any environment on any amp and still play and sound like you, I think is really the most important thing that you can always search for, regardless of if you're using someone else's tone or chasing someone else's tone. I mean, God, how many videos have I made like talking about Eric Johnson tone or Van Halen tone or Brent Mason tone or whatever? It's like I made a ton of videos trying to chase other sounds and get them as close as possible. But that's also not what I'm putting out, right? Like that's not like the Andy Wood album, right? It's not like it doesn't sound like Van Halen. Hopefully it just sounds like me. Mike Seal says, any tips on Dumble clones? I've been playing with the clone made by a company called Tyler. Totally new creature to me. I'm watching videos and learning a lot. Yeah, Dumbles, Mike. The 2-rock thing is really killer for a Dumble, and a company called Carol Ann is a really great Dumble clone kind of thing. And, Dumbles in general, there is no set Dumble like a deluxe or a Marshall. You could say that it's the Overdrive special, but the reality is every one of those had tweaks and mods, and the switches did different things. They're not really the same amp every time. He made them per client. So, what is your base that you're like? What's your watermark? So in general, the thing that I like to look for is, does it have that classic talk to your daughter kind of sound? Like that to me, when you think of Dumble, you think of like the Robin Ford thing, the talk to your daughter thing, or a little bit of the Joe Bonamassa thing. Like Joe really gets a great Dumble sound. John Mayer gets a great Dumble sound. My buddy Mark Tremonti, he has a lot of Dumbles. So they're all different. They all kind of do a little bit of a different thing, versus like if you line up 3 or 4 Fender Deluxes, they're going to kind of sound like Fender Deluxes. You know what I mean? They just kind of sound the same in a great way, in the best way possible. I would look at 2-rock, Mike. I would definitely play a 2-rock and see if that's something. It's a very immediate sound, right? Devin is asking, are you still controlling the expression pedal on the slapback? So on the slapback, it's controlling the time, not the level. Brett says modelers have the option of the problem of option paralysis. They don't know what to use. Yeah, I mean, that's totally a thing, right? Here's a great question. Retro number 6 is saying, what are the top 3 amp choices for under 5K? You got to keep it somewhat reasonable. I'm never gonna. I don't want to say never. I would just do not ever see myself spending $40K on an amplifier. Like, that just sounds like the dumbest crap ever for me. Anybody else, it's different. If you're Bonamassa or John Mayer and you have unlimited funds, you can buy whatever you want. But for me, I'm not going to spend that kind of dough on an amplifier. Top 3 amps under 5K. You want brand new or is it vintage? Let's go with brand new. Top 3 amps brand new that you can order today. So we're eliminating some of my favorite amps. Can't get a Lone Star, not made anymore. Top 3 amps today that you can order. Sir SL68. If you crave a Plexi, without a doubt, that is probably number 1. Number 2, Diesel Herbert. Whatever the Plexi doesn't do, the Diesel Herbert can do. Number 3, what do they call? What does Fender call their copy of the old amps? Like the Fender Deluxe, like Deluxe Reverb. That's like the vintage retro, whatever they call it. That's like that you can get at Guitar Center. That's top 3. Let's round it out. Let's get to 5. Let's get to 5. Number 4, Van Halen 5153, 100 watt. If you want to be more peculiar, I really like the gold face DL34 one. I don't have that one, but that's the one I like. Number 5, Two Rock. Probably 2-rock. Get in that Dumble world. That's it. That's my 5 right there. Yeah. Blues Dad says AT Mod Blues Driver is best ever. It's like it just sounds great. Josh Gordon says, do you always use a compressor on your board? Yes, I always use compressor on my board. It's just more better. Like, here's the tone without it. Here's without it. Yeah, it sounds just so good to me. Let's go to another patch. This is without it. Here's with it. Yeah, the thrill is going kind of thing. Without it again. With it. Yep. So here we go. That's the compressor. No, I don't use it on my high gain tone. No, I don't use it. So if I'm using a high gain amplifier like a 5153 or a diesel or something, yeah, I don't use the compressor on the lead channels. UV77GR says I prefer amp distortion over pedals. Anyone else? I mean, that's a very, I'm not calling you out. I'm not calling you out, but I am going to finish my sentence and it might hurt. It's a very narrow-minded perspective because you're building your signal chain based off of one sound. So you're comparing things like this. You're doing this. You're not doing the thing that I was talking about earlier, which is finding your voice on multiple different sounds. Like the distortion, the amp distortion in the Dr. Z and the amp distortion in that Diesel or that Rhodes or a 5153 is completely different. They're all super, super different, right? So at that point, and same way with like the distortion tone that like is an Eric Johnson-y or Andy Timmons-y thing or something like what I do. It's about stacking overdrive pedals to get to that point, It's not a one and done answer. So, no, Dustin, I'm not using a compressor with gearbox. If I'm doing 5153, Josh McCoy says, how do you set the resonance on a 50 watt? I don't use 50 watts. I do not like 50 watts if I have an option. And the reason is regardless of the gain structure, let's take two of the same exact amps, 50 watts and 100 watts, 51, 53. 50 watt and 100 watt, if I use the exact same gain structure, the 50 watt feels soft to me and it sounds soft and it doesn't punch through the mix as well as the 100 watt, even if they're set at the same exact volume. If they're set at the exact same volume, the 100 watt will have more clarity and precision and articulation on the note. So to me, it's about that. So I don't use 50 watts. And if it's resonance, I run it probably almost off. Like low end turns to nothing once you start playing. If you notice, my tone doesn't have this ridiculously huge amount of bass or low end. It's like it turns into nothing once you start playing in a mix. Album says that's the joy of Gearbox, 2-in-1 plus the amp. Yeah, for sure. G-Man says, have you tried the Friedman IR pedals? They're cool. It's cool. I feel like that's kind of where we're getting in the world of like the UA pedals that can be direct and their amps. They're cool. That's a great alternative, right? I think those things are great and they sound good. I'll say it like this. If you can't get your voice out, if you can't get your playing out and your musical statement out through a UA or a fractal or a amp of any kind, then your bigger problem is practice. You need to be able to do the job. Like, okay, so I was playing the riff to Muffin Man. Dweezil Zappa invited me to come hang and sit in with him down in Chattanooga last Thursday, and I did, and I played Muffin Man. Those guys all use fractals. They all use modelers. So I took my fractal. I was still able to kind of do whatever it is that I do, and sit in with him and have a good time and not be like, oh, I can't play because I don't have my amps. It's like, that becomes this like excuse kind of thing, you know? Not to say that we don't prefer our amps, because there is optimal. There's the perfect situation. The reality is most gigs will not allow you to operate in the realm of perfect situation. If you gig on Sunday morning at a church, they may not allow amps at all. So like, it doesn't matter if you've got every amp that I've got. It's like, you can't play an amp on that stage. So then you go, okay, well, which one can I get to sound the best and the most like me with fractal or UA or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? Braxel says, I saw Andy Timmons and Dan from Pedal Show last Friday at Guitar Sanctuary. They tore the place up. It was so much fun. Oh, I'm sure. I'm super sure. Retro 6 says, I love the fractal ideas. Any chance of doing a video on how you use or set up Axe Effects with beginner tips? I can run the transcript it through an AI and make a formatted outline, post it in your Patreon. That would be really cool. Yeah, maybe I should just do that. Maybe that should just be Fractal 101 for my patrons. And maybe I'd do one for YouTube as well. I'm not sure about, because it's all subjective at that point in how I use it and the way that I go about it. But for me, it's, I have basically 4 or 5 different levels of gain. And then once I get to the highest level of gain, it's, do I want it to be more amp style distortion, or do I want it to be more overdrive, like an overdrive pedal? With cleans, same kind of thing. How my clean on my lead sound actually has a little bit of push, and it's not a lot of dirt, but it's a little bit of push. Bill Givens is in the house. How you doing, Bill? He says, I used to have that take about amp gain, but after finally trying some pedals out, it really changed my perspective. Growth. I mean, it's like, what is it that you're trying to achieve? If you're trying to achieve the Petrucci sound, you got to use an amp. You got to use a Mark Series amp specifically. That's the one that, to me, when I think of John's tone, it sounds like a Mark Series Mesa. Now, within that, there's the subdivisions of like the Mark V, the Mark C+, the Mark IV, like whatever. At that point, whatever. They sound like a Mark Series amp. You can get them close enough to each other. That's how I feel. I'm sure people would crucify me for just lumping them all together. But I tell you what they don't sound like, and that's a Vox. They sure as don't sound like that. They don't sound like Marshalls. They sound like Mark Series Mesa amps. They don't sound like dual Rex, So it's like getting that identity of like where something sits. An amp that I really fell in love with within the Fractal Axe Effects that I'd like to try in real life is the Triple Crest, which is a triple crown Mesa. It might be based on the Stiletto. They did those Stiletto amps. I'm not sure. Triple crowns, I don't know. It's a really cool sounding amp within the Fractal. I don't know if they're any good in real life, but it was sounding really good in the Fractal. General is saying, I think it's more of a purist perspective. Just plug straight into a head. If you can play, you can play. If you want clean tone, roll back the volume knob. Okay, that's a sticky wicket because it depends on the genre. It depends on the genre. No telly country player is going to plug into a cranked to the moon plexi or diesel and roll back the volume knob for their clean. No, you're going to want a clean tone. You guys see what I'm getting at? It's like learning and growing to understand that you're in need of the tool that's going to do the job that you need to do. Everyone has a different base starting point watermark of what that is, that thing that they're trying to do. If you're covering AC/DC, then that kind of approach really works. What is General is saying is really, it works great. If you're covering Diamond Rio, that would be a horrible way to go about it. If you're covering Brooks and Dunn, that would be kind of a dog shit way to go about it. It's not good. It's not a great way to go about doing it that way. Metal, not great. You want clean and you want super gainy. It all depends on where you're, and to me, that's where I find that a modular system with some overdrive pedals and a great fat sounding amp can do a lot of different things and allow me to go in different textures on the fly. Like, is this the metal tone that I would use if I was cutting a metal record, right? Let's bring this up, I wouldn't use that. That's not the metal tone I would use. I would plug into a different amp and go for it. But can that do a metal-esque kind of thing? Yeah, it can get me close enough, for no longer that I'm going to be living in that world, right? Like I'm not going on stage with Sleep Token or something, right? Like that would require a different tool. Braxel says, Andy, is the FM3 as good as the Axe 3? What should I get? Braxel, I would get an FM9. You get the horsepower of the Axe 3 with the foot controls of the FM series. That's what I would get. I use the Fractal Axe 3, but it only lives in my rack right here. When I go out and play, I play the FM9. I'm using it. Fitzpraise says UA Lion is fantastic, and it's great as a clean pedal platform in church. He loves it. Yeah, that's a great example of what I'm talking about. That's a successful way to go about it. You go, hey, this can do this thing that allows me to do my thing. That's what you're going after. Sammy Reynolds says, Andy, have you seen Bukovac and Huff chatting on Brett Papa's channel? I actually watched half of it this morning. I intend to watch the other half of it tonight when I make dinner. So yeah, pretty awesome. Josh McCoy says, Andy, when you used a timeline on the dual setting, did you set the time as 3 and 2? I think it was 3 and 4 or 4 and 3. It was one of those. It was like the dotted eighth note, quarter note thing. 3 and 4, right? Andy, bass clean tone, super clean, or edge of breakup? Not super, pushed. Pushed would be, like, this is clean though. This is clean. If I really hit it, you get a little crunch in there. But I can't overdrive it with single coils. Like, this is a really important kind of tone to me. Just jangly clean. Because if I've got to track something that's lush, or I've got a client, or I'm going to do a gig live, That's a really valuable tool to have, is I can hit it hard and it still sounds clean. I think if I can't do that, I have a problem. Because I can always use a pedal to get me up here. Like I can always add. It's like you can always put more stuff on it. You can't take it away. Again, it's like rolling the volume knob back on a cranked 5153. Kind of does nothing. For those of you that have played the 5153s, they have all of the gain in the world. It's so much gain. But yeah, you're not going to do much of anything rolling those volume knobs back. Now, speaking of tone and things that are coming up, I have a little $280 Les Paul copy. And we've been using the word metal a lot. Well, I want to do a video on what I think is the best metal tones. And a key component to my favorite metal tones, key components. Again, 3 times fast, right? The key component for me, and I'm ready to test these out. For metal, it's gotta be something within this EMG territory. Now, this was not sponsored, or I'm not putting EMGs in my guitars or anything like that. But I will say, every time I hear a metal tone that makes my ear perk and my big toe shoot up out of my boot, I go and look, and it's 8185 Zakk Wylde EMGs. I'm like, golly dang. Kill Switch Engage, Zakk. Like, the dudes that have the sickest metal tone to me, I'm like, 8185. It's got a thing. So I'm going to load up this little $300 Les Paul, and I'm going to do a before. And it's got great pickups in it right now. It's got a Sir Aldrich pickup set in it. It's killer, but it sounds like passive pickups. It doesn't sound like the EMG thing. So I'm going to do an A/B comparison and see if the secret sauce to great metal tones is the EMG. I have a feeling it will be. This is just something I need to put to rest for my own studies. I'm a student of tone, and I like to go into a room and see people smile. When I play my first couple of chords, and it's guys that are jaded and they're sick of music and they don't want to be working in that theater that day, and hey man, what are you playing through? That's really rewarding to me. I'm a big fan of getting a really great sound and having people ask about tone. So I spend a lot of time comparing all these things, but at the end of it, when I plug these into the Les Paul, I'm still going to sound like me, and I've got my voice to where it's just its thing. And hopefully that's what it is the culmination of all our heroes, right? Like, yeah, if you hear me play, you're going to be like, that guy likes Steve Morse. If you hear me play, you're going to be like, that guy likes Brent Mason. Oh, that guy likes Tony Rice. Oh, he likes Eric Johnson. You're going to hear all these things, but hopefully when it all comes out, you're not going to hear a clone of anything. You're just going to hear little bits and nuggets, my favorite stuff. But I think it's important to constantly study every aspect and let our ears learn what the quickest way to the right solution is, because all of these things are just colors. They're like going to Lowe's or Home Depot and going to buy a tool or a table saw or a paintbrush or a shovel. I mean, you're not going to paint your house with a shovel. That's one of my favorite things I always say when I'm at clinics and I'm helping guys with tone. And if you're like a fingerstyle player like Mike Seal, he's going to have a different velocity. Things are going to be different. The needs are going to be different. So like what works for him may not work for you. Van Halen, what worked for him didn't work for a lot of people because he used way more of everything than people realize. I love it when people just get on arguing. They're like, that's not the Van Halen presets. And I'm just like, you're wrong. Matt Bruck put these in the SDE 3000. Like this is the presets from the rig. You can verify it. Dave Friedman will talk Van Halen with you all day long. Like he got those things to where nobody could play them, and then he would go up there and it would be Van Halen. It's like, it's crazy, right? Like when you hear other people try to do the Eric Johnson thing, it's like it always sounds not right. It sounds like something's not correct. And then when Eric plays on it, it's like his velocity makes it work, right? I've played through Steve Morse's rig on stage with Steve Morse. It's like I sound like me, But that's something that you want to be comfortable with, not something that it makes you play bad. You know what I mean? You'll have to alter your playing from amp to amp. You know what I'm saying? Like when I play clean tones or when I play super shred stuff, I alter the way I play. The muting changes. All the things in the hands, they change. I change the EQ because it requires a different touch. Really, it's like the touch is what starts the whole process. It starts the whole dominoes down the hill of like, what is it that you're putting into the instrument, and then how do you manipulate it? Like when people play my rig, a couple of guys in the chat, like Brad, he's fit to praise. You've played my rigs. They don't sound the way you think they're going to sound because I play really hard and I have a lot of pick articulation. So I'm trying to reel that back in on through the amps and the pedals. I can sound way too bright really easily, Okay, here we go. Jeff Loomis uses EMGs. Jeff's a great dude. Sahar, here's some random knowledge for you. Jeff Loomis actually ordered himself an Andy Wood model guitar. So did Tremonti. They both have a black and silver Andy model guitar, which is cool. Makes me want to go out and buy their model guitars because their dudes are awesome. Sahar says my favorite jazz fusion player used EMGs for the longest time, so it's good. Blues Dad says, Andy, when I met you in person, I said I heard of a lot of Andy Timmons in your playing, and I meant that completely as a compliment. I hope you understood what I meant. Absolutely, and I think anybody that would hear some of my tunes like Believe or possibly Reach or Cherry Blossoms, even like there's hints of the Timmons, Dan Huff, Lukather, Landau concoction, like whatever that is. That's that concoction of dudes. And then, when you hear tunes like Ricky and Cal or Shredneck or Smoke Wagon, it's like the Brent Mason, Albert Lee concoction of dudes. And then when you hear my rock tunes, obviously you're going to hear a lot of Steve Morse. Like my rock stuff sounds like Steve Morse songs. Not in a bad way. At least I hope not in a bad way. I like it. Blues Dad says, Dallas Guitar Show, are you coming? No, I wasn't. I'm not coming. I would love to have done it this year. Maybe they'll call me next year. I did it last year, and hopefully they'll give me a shout for next year's event. Alberto says, hey man, I got Sir SL68 for a higher gain. Do you prefer cranked up amp and add a boost, running the amp clean and using a distortion pedal? I'm looking for 80 shred tone. I run, for the 80 shred tone, not Van Halen. So specifically, we're not seeking Van Halen tone. For me, I run the amp loud and clean and then use pedals like the Andy Timmons pedal or the Gearbox specifically to get you into that world. Gearbox, it'll get you there. Yeah, that's how I would do it. That way you can have your delay out front too. Candyman says, hey, Andy, looking for a set of woodbuckers for my SG. Do I need to go to a resale market or Sir release them at some point? They're available right now. Any Sir dealer will sell you a set of woodbuckers. And if they're for an SG, you need the Gibson spacing. So you need to make sure that that's notated with your dealer. Braxel says, I thought you said not to play hard and play lightly with fingers on the fretboard. Fingers on the fretboard is light. My picking hand is what's got a lot of velocity. If anyone is in the chat, here he says, Josh McCoy says, if anyone in his chat has not watched the pentatonic adaptation, I strongly suggest you check it out. I'd love for you and Makuso to get together. Pookie, we did. Last Guitar Summit, we did it. And it was a blast. He is magnificent. Mateo Mancuso is magnificent. Just love everything he's doing. Blues Dad says, boo. I know, me too. What is your best advice for songwriting? Stay out of your own way. Number one, let the song happen. If it needs to go somewhere simple, let it go somewhere simple. Don't try to brute force things. If you have something that's complex that there's something special in it, like for me when I was writing it's a little more complex kind of piece of one of my songs. Like when I was writing that, I was like, there's something in here that's magical. And I was just working on arpeggios. I was just trying to connect things. But I knew there was something in there, so I just started like framing out what those chords work. Right? So like maybe we'll play that one and I'll show you kind of how that came to be. And I wrote it from the perspective of a mandolin and guitar going back and forth, and it's on the album Junktown. It's been a long time since I played it. I might hit some bad notes. It's called Beyond the Reef. Cool. So like you can tell, to me it was like writing songs to me is like the end game. So it's like you got to find the right tone that fits the right thing. It's going to be the right thing in the song. So to me, it's like overdrive pedals make that work. You know, make that sound work. And the reason that sounds so close to the record is that's pretty much the signal chain that I used when I made that. That was the Sir Bella and the gearbox, you know, for the leads. So yeah, and it's like not overthinking it and letting the parts be what they need to be. Like if the chug part is, you know, if it's like, it can be two chords. Song can be two chords. And that's acceptable. That is the right answer. I think oftentimes we get in our own way and we try to overcomplicate things, and then we lose the sense of, I don't have a better word, but musicality. Like, if everything's super complicated, then my ears get real fatigued. I get tired. And if I'm tired and I'm a musician that loves super complicated music, then I know the general public's going to be tired. Somebody said, Andy, is the track Hylia on Charisma a Legend of Zelda reference? It is. I'm a massive Legend of Zelda fan. I'm a massive video game fan. I'm currently playing through A Link to the Past again for the 58th time in my life because it's the best. And every album that I've ever made that's a solo album has a song that's named after a video game. The song that I just played, called Beyond the Reef, is a reference to Destiny, Destiny franchise by Bungie. Album says, Andy, will mids muddy your sound live? It depends on what else is with your sound. Is there a keyboard player? What's he playing? Is he playing B3 or is he playing clean piano? Because your sound will clash or complement. Is there another guitar player? Ben Eller is in Skankbanger with me, and it's our 80s shred tribute band. Ben recently brought in a Jakey Lee Friedman, and it was real snotty and bright, and I thought it was the best that we sounded together because it was so bright and brash and had claws. My tone is a lot, my tone in that band is a lot closer to the Van Hagar tone. That's kind of like what I like to go for, or that kind of thing. So it just depends. Will mids muddy up your tone? It just depends what you're playing with. Depends who's in the band. Depends what your drummer sounds like. Holy cow. Your mix needs to be built around your drummer. You can tell that my tone sounds a certain way when I play by myself, but when I played with the album, it's like, sounds right. That's the way it sounds. It sounds good. Because it's like I carved the tone to be what sounds great for recording an album and making music on an album, and not making music like by myself with nothing, right? Jason Mazur says, I know I'm late to the party on this, but have you heard the Van Halen demo Voodoo Queen with the Mean Street riff? Vaguely. I can't recall if it's just a YouTube link floating around out there or what, but yeah, somebody sent it to me and I don't recall it. Plexico with the $5 tip. Thank you, Plexico. I appreciate you for the beer money. Hi, Andy. Do you think for an 80s lush chorus sound, you need to have a preamp on your guitar with series parallel switches? What are options it needs? You don't need it, but boy, it sure does make it sound awesome. It's going to make it more authentic. I would advise, if you're going to buy one of those and it just needed to be an off-the-shelf ride, then the Dan Huff copy from Tyler is a great, or any Tom Anderson with a switcheroo, but you need to have the preamp in it. Of course, Sir can get in there and build you something custom, but because it's not a signature model or a pre-existing unit, it's going to have to be a full custom build, which will get deep into the wallet. As good things tend to do. You got to buy nice or buy twice, kids. Remember that. Buy nice or buy twice. And I really mean that because as you can see, I've never really gotten rid of anything. I've got stuff that's awesome that I use. Braxel says, Andy, when you write a song, do you always stay in that key or do a lot of modal interchange? You can tell there's a lot of key changes in my songwriting. On the new record, the song Shoot the Sun Down moves. Kind of starts here and ends up here. And then there is the song Helia, which is here. So that's like in both A and D minor. To F to C. That's like the 5 chord. Secondary dominant. You know, there's a lot of key changes in my stuff. There's so that's like A to C minor. And then the chord progression in the middle of that actually changes again, right? Doesn't it go... Oh, is that? Yeah, there's a lot of moves in that one. There's a lot of moves in Free Range Chicken. Because that whole Brent solo is in F sharp. You know, that thing's there, and then my solo's in A, right? So it's like that thing's always kind of, and the song is an E, so it's constantly moving around all over the place. I love to move chord changes around. It just feels good to me. Dustin says, compressor question for anyone in the chat. I'm using hum single, especially on clearance tone. The humbucker sounds softer than the singles, but the output's way higher. Any tips? Drop the singles down. Yeah, just the pickup level of the humbucker. Try messing with that. Paul says, hello from Texas. Andy, do you find it more technical phrasing vertically and more melodic phrasing horizontally? Yeah, I mean, kind of like that. Yeah, that could be a neat way to look at it. Bijou says, when you're jamming to a backing track, you're trying to make a structure, execute chorus on the spot and repeat it throughout the song. Oh, I don't know, man. I try to just play something that sounds good. It's just like, what sounds like that's good melodically? you know. Glenn says, are those modal shifts deliberate or do they just fall onto the fingers? In other words, it just happens when screwing around. You go, ooh, that's nice. A little bit of both. It's like I can tell when I'm jamming along if I'm sick of being in one key. And if that's the case, then the listener's probably sick of it too. Like rarely in my new record will you find a song that stays in the same key the whole time. Usually the solo section will move or there'll be some kind of modulations throughout it. Like my songs do not stay in the same key. Believe is in D the whole time. Cherry Blossom. The ballad is there. The ballads are there the whole time. Storms and Sparrows has a couple of key changes. All of the rocker tunes have key changes. Yeah. I'm constantly moving those key changes around. Try to get different flavors of the story. Try to get like chapters in a book. You know, like I don't want to be the whole time in one key. It gets kind of dull. You know, like you know what I don't listen to is a lot of those like jam along Insta YouTube guys that just have a backing track and then just play over that stock backing track, funk backing track. I don't ever listen to that stuff. It just is boring to me. I don't really like that. Like, I think that's what makes Steve Vai and Steve Morse and those guys such great composers, and Eric Johnson too. It's just like they're like, listen to Pavilion by Eric Johnson. Like, it's constantly moving somewhere else. Manhattan is a great example of that too, where it's constant. There's like perpetual motion, constantly moving the tune forward. I think that's really needed, right? Yeah. Dustin says it's about time for a monthly plea or appeal to Gamer. Moon Over the Castle Gran Turismo soundtrack. Ooh, I need to go back and listen to that. J-Man says, Andy, can you talk the differences between flat picking you picked up as a kid versus your adapted technique for electric? That's a long one. We'll do that next week. That's a long answer. We're going to wrap it up. I actually went 30 minutes longer than I normally do today. Album says, Andy, once you have finished watching the Dan Huff, please teach us those fluid bends and slides. Yeah, man. Dan's the best at them, you know? Just the, what was it? Yeah. So good at that stuff, man. My favorite. He's just so good. Man, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out this week. Time for a little housekeeping. Housekeeping says, Woodshed Guitar Experience, September 11th through 14. We're going to have Paul Gilbert. Dan Huff will be there as well. We'll have Trey Hensley. We will have Mark Lettieri. It's going to be star-studded, to say the least. Heavily loaded with all kinds of guitar goodies. Use code AWOOD200. And if you enjoy the channel, if you enjoy what we do here, and you want more of it, there is plenty to be had over at my Patreon. That is patreon.com/AndyWoodMusic. And when I say there's plenty, let me tell you this. We do a live weekly Zoom masterclass for all you combo tier. That's the $25 a month. It seems like a lot. I guess it is. I don't know. But you get 4 live 2-hour masterclasses a month on top of 600, 700-ish lessons. So just hundreds of lessons on all kinds of different topics. There's everything you can imagine over there. There's Axe-Fx patches. There's, tablatures and transcriptions. I mean, just good Lord, everything is on that. It's huge. That's patreon.com/AndyWoodMusic. Now on to the website. The website, we are in the middle of getting the vinyls duplicated, and they will be going out sometime in the next, months. In the next months, whenever they're done duplicating. We got to make vinyl babies. The vinyl babies are being made right now. And that is all at andywoodmusic.com. That is where you can purchase tones, backing tracks, tablatures, hoodies, t-shirts, hats. All that stuff is served up a la carte. Now, I'm not telling you to do it. Don't feel obligated. But if you like what you see and you want more of it, it's the only way that I can keep doing what I'm doing. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that junk too. Bell notification, blah, 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 blah. Influencer terminology that I hate saying, but we're saying it anyways because it matters. So that's my housekeeping. We will see you guys real soon, everyone. I appreciate you so much. Be blessed.